Hey, welcome to the Bootheel Sports Network Cover 3 podcast. I'm Mark Manley, been joined by the voice of the Crowsville Tigers, Jeremy Abrams, and the voice of those Portersville Bulldogs, Chris Brown. Guys, you two are going to tangle up this week, man. Should be a great matchup.
Well, I got a feeling that I'm getting ganged up on here because I'm looking at two blue shirts. What's going on here, Mark?
I got my Duke Blue Devils on today, baby. You know, getting pumped up for basketball already in my house.
Oh, yeah.
Won't be long, fellas. Won't be long. We're almost through high school football. There's only a few more games on the regular season and then playoff time. All right, guys. Let's talk about our takes from last week. Finally got to see Crowsville in person. And they're every bit that I thought they'd be. You know, I've watched them on film a few times, but seeing that defense and what they could do, especially the second half, they dominated Hayti. Hayti could not put any more points up. Hayti seems to hang around that first half in every game, man, but they just can't put the full game together, man. They put a couple and they've won those, but other than that, man, they just, after halftime, it's a different story for these young Indians.
It's all about youth. I mean, that's generally the way a young team goes is they start out strong, especially at home. And you know, then as the game goes on, you know, those Tigers, man, they just continue to slug it. And that's kind of what happened.
Well, and if you look at the Tigers' schedule with their 6 wins, their second half, they've shut out teams 3 times in the second half now. So they one of their keystones is per team figuring out where they're making mistakes at in the first half and going out in the second half and fixing those, and then riding that offense as well. And that's what happened in Hayti. And I'll tell you what, like Chris said, Hayti is a young team, and even Coach G said last night on the coaches show, next year the score's not going to be 48-16. There's no way. It's going to be a lot closer. And that came out of the words of the coach, so I believe him.
Hey, Chris, you got to see a team that we're not very familiar with, and Father Toten out of Columbia, Missouri, came down here in the boot here, and man, it was like they did a number of those Bulldogs.
You know, let me start this rant by saying, how in the world is Father Toten not have been nor are in the top 10 in Class 2? I will never figure out, because I'm going to tell you what, this team, they took it to us from start to finish. I mean, they were complete. I mean, and I even joked with my cameraman, it's almost like I'm watching the 2018 Hayti Indians out there. I mean, we couldn't do anything. Special teams, we lost that big time. Offense, we couldn't do nothing. Defense, it was an impressive showing by Father Toten, and they still aren't in the top 10. But I'm gonna tell you what, look out for Father Toten, because they are complete. And plus, too, their starting running back, who was returning All-State player, didn't even play in the game. He was hurt. So, man, it made me want to cry. I mean, it was an ugly game, that's for sure.
And they are Class 2, you said?
Does that mean your boys are going to be a little fired up?
3. Yeah, Class 2, District 3, and they're in second place in their district. But, man, what a team. I was just impressed from start to finish. Didn't see a weak point. We couldn't run. We couldn't pass. We couldn't block them. They got a kicker that could probably start for the Philadelphia Eagles tonight if he wanted to, because every kick went in the end zone. Every extra point was, 50 yards seemed like past the goalpost. So they're going to be a team that's going to be in there. If somebody beats them, look out.
Tell you what, that's the kicking game. We don't see much down here, but when you go up north, you see it a lot. We played Veritas Christian up in O'Fallon, and they had a kicker that could kick the ball too. He also played quarterback. So now let's get some injury updates. Hayti lost J.C. Ford. He's due for MIR this week. I haven't heard anything back on that, man. So let's hope J.C. is probably through for the year as far as football, man. I don't know about basketball, but I don't look for him to come back in football with only a few more games to play. And Chris, you guys lost Bogan at running back too, I do believe.
Yeah, Jay Bogan, he didn't play in the second half. He was on crutches and had an ice pack on his knee. Man, he was defensively. I think he had 7 or 8 tackles in the first half, and he's just such a great player on both sides of the ball. Didn't do much offensively, but he was a huge. We missed him big time, and I've heard that he's going to be out this weekend for Saturday's game too. So, but we do have Zay Bogan that's in there, and we got Deuce Hickenbottom, and we still got the Parton twins, and so we're going to bring what we got, and we're going to compete with the Tigers, that's for sure. But no Jay Bogan.
You get one Bogan back, another one goes down. So they ain't had much playing time together this year. I know it's Jay's senior year. Is that correct?
Yes, Jay and Zay, both of their.
Oh, both senior. Wow, I got you, man. That's rough. Jeremy, I guess you got escaped the injury this week.
The only player that we were missing, coincidentally, was actually no. I'm sorry, it wasn't Kenyon Bogan. It was Trace McGraw, or Ridge McGraw. Ridge McGraw had to sit out the game with an ankle injury. He's back, and that as of last night, 100% healthy and ready to go. So everyone should be all right.
All right, and I'm glad Chris mentioned that because that game has been moved to Saturday at 1 o'clock, and that is at Hockey Field in Cruzville. We'll touch bases on that here in a little bit. Now let's go over some games in the area. I tell you what, a big game that's up north is 6-1 Valley playing Bowling Green. Bowling Green is 7-0. That should be an interesting game there, and Bowling Green, I look at their schedule, man. They just been beating the stew out of people.
Yeah, Valley, that's a good game to have next to last game of the season. I don't know much about Bowling Green. I haven't, they haven't been a powerhouse that I know of in the last little bit, unless they've been in a larger class. But I'm really looking forward to seeing the outcome of that game. Of course, we'll talk about the district standings, but I don't think either way it's going to affect Valley's seeding. But that ought to be a good one, that's for sure.
That is number 2 versus 3 in the state rankings, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. Then St. Vincent 7-0 travels to Grandview. Grandview 4-3. Kelly 2-5, taking on Soden with Sumner. They are 1-5. 2-5 Poplar Bluff taking on the Kennett Indians. Senior night at Kennett. They're 0-7, looking for that elusive win, number 1 on the year. 2-4 Miller Career Academy with Vashon taking on Jackson. Jackson 5-2 on the year. And then 4-3 Lift for Life taking on Cape Central. Cape Central 6-1. That only lost to Jackson the rivalry game. And a stunning, little bit mild upset there as everybody had Cape winning that one, but Jackson said not tonight. New Magic County Central 3-4, taking on the Sykeston Bulldogs at 2-5. Probably going to be a pretty decent game, evenly matched there. And then Veritas Christian taking on Malden. That is another Saturday game, guys. It's Veritas Christian from O'Fallon. They're 1-5. Malden at 0-7. But Malden could get win number 1 on Saturday. And then here's a rivalry game for you guys. 1-6 Chaffee traveling that 5 miles down the road to Scott City. Scott City 4-3. Should be an interesting matchup. Scott City's 4-3, but guys, they're better than that 4-3. I mean, they're going to compete. Yeah, we all know that, and I figure Scott City's going to win that one as well. Any thoughts on that game there, guys? You both seen Scott City play, so.
Yeah, I don't think Scott City should have any trouble with Chaffee.
No, it looked like Underwood got his feet back under him here this past week, so they get him going. I don't think they'll have any problem with Chaffee either.
Just give him the rock. 7-0 Dexter taking on Central Park Hills. This will be another one. Central Park Hills is 5-2. Dexter undefeated and number 3 in Class 3. So interesting matchup there. And then we're getting around locally here. It's East Prairie 5-2. Oh, yeah, it is right, I guess, huh? Or 2-5. What are they?
Yep.
They're
They're
5.
taking on Charleston. Yeah, 5-2, taking on Charleston 5-2. So that's going to be a good game. And Charleston, I tell you what, I looked at their schedule. They lost that early game to Kelly. I don't think they'd lose that one now, guys.
No,
they've turned the corner,
I don't
and
either.
they look excellent, man. And got a big win over Scott City last Friday night.
Yeah, I think the Charleston team.
And I think that shocked a lot
They're
of
not
people.
the same. Yeah, they're not the same as week 1. That's for sure.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
Well, no, yeah, I think that I think Chris is right because and we saw the Charleston team. Now Crosville did beat them 34-6, but there's so much talent on that team. It just said that was one of the games that Crosville shut them out in the second half. But there's a lot of speed, and Charleston is a team to reckon with. They're gonna make some noise, I think, in the playoffs.
Yeah, Charleston rotates that quarterback around too, man. They got like a throwing quarterback they bring in, and their wildcat quarterback. So they do some different things, and I look forward to Charleston to stay on that winning track there and winning this one. And then Hayti is going to travel all the way to Pleasant Hope over by Springfield area. Hayti 2-5, taking on the 1-4 Pleasant Hope. Don't really know much about Pleasant Hope. I don't think they I think they started football back maybe not too long ago, and so they've actually played one less game as they opened up a week later than everybody else. So, and then the big game in our area is the 4-3 Portersville Bulldogs taking on the 6-1 Crowsville Tigers. Chris, your thoughts on this game? I know you're going to Hopkey Field on a Saturday afternoon. It's going to be beautiful weather, so great day for high school football on a Saturday. It's going to have that kind of playoff atmosphere, I believe.
It will have, and I heard watching Jeremy and Coach G's show last night. The roller coaster is exactly right. I mean, that's basically what our team has been, and so up and down. And right now we're down, but it's going to be tough, man, to go in there in Hopkey. I hadn't been there in a month, and homecoming weekend, and with Portageville, that was our homecoming game last Friday. And let me just say this too. I've never been a fan of being out of school on a day when you play a big game. And our kids did not go to school Friday, and I'm not trying to make excuses, but man, it just seems like you get them out of their routine. That might have had a little bit of something to do with it, but Crothersville's going to be ready. They're going to be coached up. I mean, they just got everything going for them, and they're looking, to chase after those Valley Catholic Warriors, and I hope that we have a good game. I know that we're not going to roll over, and so it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun teaming up with you, Jeremy, on the broadcast as well.
Absolutely, I've been looking forward to it since I saw it on the schedule, and that's one thing that I was talking about. This Portersville team, from everything I've seen, they can go out and they can score points. Got off to that great hot start, that 3-0 start, and then just kind of up and down. But you guys have been banged up, and you mentioned not being a Hopkey Field for a month. These guys are going to be itching to be in front of that home crowd. They travel well, but it's a whole different story at homecoming added on to it. But there's one thing that was talked about by the players last night. They know that they're not even thinking about St. Jeff or Valley in the future or anything like that. This is a Portersville team they know they can't look over, and that was as many players were at the show last night. That's what they were talking about. They're all focused on the game. So I think it's going to be a good one. I think it's going to be – I don't think it's going to be anything where fans are leaving early or anything crazy. I think it's going to be pretty close, at least. I'll say at least into the final quarter or so.
I think the key – for the Dogs is we have got to, this is a must. We've got to jump on them early. We need to score 2 touchdowns before they even come close to getting in their end zone, because I believe if once Crowsville gets a lead, I just hope that we can jump on you guys early. I think that's going to be a big key, and And I hope that happens because we're definitely going to need to get some momentum going back on our way.
And that's you make a great point because that's only happened one time this season that Crothersville didn't score first, and that was Valley. And we all know what happened in that game. But you're right. It seems like when Crothersville does score first, they kind of get an extra step in there and in their boots, and they start to take off. But we'll see what happens.
Tell you what, of course, we're going to see some area leaders in this game with Sammy Bryant, and then, of course, Bogan went down, but he was number 8, which we'll go over all this here in a minute. But then defensive-wise, of course, Crothersville's got Oscar Dominguez and Alexander back there, man, and, Windsor on defense for Portersville, and what's the kid that plays defensive end, Chris? He was in the backfield all night against Hayti.
For
Portersville? Yeah.
Probably Maddox Morgan.
Yes, yeah. So it's going to be an interesting matchup, man. And I'm going to the Mizzou game where I'd be watching. I'm going to watch Mizzou and Auburn Saturday, and then I'll probably watch that game afterwards, man. So I hope you guys have a great broadcast, and those two will be on one broadcast this week. We will not split it up like we did the Hayti-Crothersville game. Just not enough room in that booth in Crothersville's packed house every week, huh, Jeremy? Because you're going to have
me and Charlie, and well, you got Charlie, and then Charlie's not a little fella. He's my big, he's my right hand man, and he towers over me, and we're in the smallest booth up there. So we'll figure it out though, and I just look forward to working with Chris and calling a good ball game.
Yeah, and you never really see very often, where you got two broadcasters on two different teams, so it's going to be interesting. I know the Dogs really, really well, and of course Jeremy is Mr. Tiger over there, and so I can't wait. It's going to be a great time, and I just can't wait to get there.
All right, guys, now we're going to move on, talk about the rankings. Let's go over our Bootheel Sports Network top 5. Dexter coming in at number 1 at 7-0. Look for them to improve to 8-0. St. Vincent at number 2 at 7-0. Valley Catholic at 3 at 6-1. Crothersville 6-1 at our number 4. And then Charleston at number 5. We seen them last week debut, and now they lock up number 5 by themselves with that win over Scott City. Got some thoughts on our top 5, fellas? Go ahead, Chris.
It's I like the Charleston. I like the Charleston at 5 because they got a defense. Their defense is impressive, and they got a few athletes, and Valley, man, that's a solid top 3, and then you throw the Tigers in there at 4. I mean, that's a pretty solid top 5. I have no disagreements with any of those right there.
I don't either. And you just look at when you say the top 3, you can't argue with that. And I still think, and this is probably maybe a little bit biased, but I still think Crothersville is a little bit underrated just because the smaller school were way down here in the boot. But I can't argue with Charleston at all being number 5. So yeah, I think it's right. It's spot on where the rankings are right now. And I'm really, really interested in, especially since we will be playing tomorrow night with the Saturday game, hopefully being able to watch that Valley Catholic game and see if I can find a stream somewhere.
Yeah, that'd be definitely worth watching, man. I'll tell you what, I wish we could see Dexter play more too, because we're all busy on Friday nights, and I did have a chance to watch him against Southern Boone that Saturday game a couple weeks ago, and I just wish Crothersville Dexter used to play all the time, man. I wish that game still happened, man. It'd be a great year to see that game. All right, now we go over to state rankings class.
I've seen on a high school football field was Crothersville versus Dexter. It was Adam Cecil. He tackled someone right at my feet, and I'm telling you right now, you could hear that hit in the boot heel all the way down in Crothersville.
All right, so we'll go on to state rankings now. Class 1, number 1 is Marionville. They're 7-0. There's St. Vincent at number 2. They're 7-0. They actually got 4 first place votes, so they're just 1 vote away from being tied with Marionville for number 1. Adrian at number 3 at 6-1. Tipton at 6-1 at number 4. Windsor at 5, 6-1. And there's Van Farb, who's in our district. They are number 6 at 6-1. Number 7 is Ash Grove at 6-1. Milan at 8 at 5-2. Salisbury at number 9 at 6-1, and then West Tran at 5-2 at number 10. That is your Class 1 rankings. Now to Class 2. Fair Grove at number 1, and there's Bowling Green at number 2 at 7-0, and Valley Catholic at number 3 at 6-1. Like we said earlier, those 2 teams will match up this Friday night, so should be a good one. Warsaw at 4 at 7-0. Lafayette County is number 5 at 6-1. Mid Buchanan 7-0 at number 6. And they're at number 7, Jeremy, the highest ranking this year for the Crowsville Tigers, as they are 6-1. They moved up 2 spots. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like I said, it's going to take the big wins. Porterville's going to be one of them for them to keep climbing, and it's going to take the bigger teams up north to lose. But Crothersville's, they're going to stick around. I see them finishing the regular season in the top 10, and then it's playoff time, boys.
Yeah, I can't wait to playoffs, man. You never know what happens in the playoff games, man. I'll tell you, anything can happen. And I really love those Saturday afternoon games too, man. Great atmospheres, man. We hosted one year against West Tran, one of the best crowds I've ever seen. And so I look forward to Crensville hosting a Saturday afternoon game, man. That'd be awesome. But anyway, let's go on. Brookfield's number 8 at 7-0. South Shelby at 9 at 6-1. Mountain View Liberty closes it out at 10 at 5-2. Class 3, Blair Oaks is number 1 at 6-1. Seneca, number 2 at 7-0. Dexter, number 3 at 7-0. St. Francis Borgia, number 4, 7-0. Mount Vernon, number 5 at 6-1. Maryville comes in at number 6 at 4-3, followed by Stratford at 7. Stratford is number 7, guys, with a 7-0 record. I don't understand that one. And there's that Southern Boone team at number 8. And then Park Hill Central, number 9, 5-2. And then number 10, the Lift for Life team, who plays, I believe, Cape Central. No, they're playing Cape this Friday night. So be an interesting matchup there. So those are your state rankings, guys. Now let's go over our district rankings, which are pretty interesting. We'll start with Class 1, District 1. Of course, St. Vincent leads the way there. They're 7-0. They have 66.12 on the point column. And then they're followed by Crystal City. Crystal City with only 3 wins, 4 losses. But they have racked up 50 points in the district scoring column. And then Van Favre comes in at number 3 at 6-1. They've racked up 47.19. And then there's those Charleston Blue Jays. Charleston, to me, is a sleeper in this district, guys. They're 5-2. They got 43 points. And then Hayti comes in at number 5 at 2-5, followed by Chaffee at 1-6. Veritas Christian at 1-5, followed by Malden at 0-7, and Louisiana at 0-7. So, guys, your thoughts on Class 1, District 1 standings? We'll start with Chris first.
Yeah, Charleston, if I was Hayti, I wouldn't want to be right under Charleston because I guess there was 9 teams in that district, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So number 1's going to get a bye, so you're going to have a 2-9,
right.
a 3-8, 4-7, 5-6, and man, I wouldn't want to play that Charleston team at all. But Hayti, I believe they're. I'm not sure if they're solid lock to host a playoff game. They got to get out of that spot. I think the team they played this week, ain't they a Class 3 team?
Pathway, yes. Halfway okay. Pathway, yeah.
Hey, a win there, and that could bump you up above Charleston. So, good stuff with 2 games left, and anything can happen.
That's right. Haytai's got 2 winnable games, the last 2, and they're about to be playing up in class. Go ahead, Jeremy. No, Malden's class 1 now. I forgot. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, with Charleston, where they're sitting, I really think that they've just gotten stronger week by week. I really do, and it's going to be interesting to see where they are seated after these next 2 weeks, and then where Hayti ends up too. Because I do think you're right. I think Hayti's got 2 winnable games, so it's. I mean, this is what high school football is all about, coming down to the districts and the seedings.
Yeah, because the goal, of course, to win a state championship and win a district, but I think a lot of a goal also is to host a playoff game. I mean that's what you want to do. You want to host a playoff game because if you don't, you're going to be on the road throughout. So it's going to be interesting to see how these final 2 games play out in Class 1, District 1.
Our man Sherman Manley chiming in. He said he remembers Crowsville hosting St. Borgia in the state playoff quarterfinals in '94 when Crowsville made the semifinals and lost to Knob Noster. Crowsville had a heck of a team that year, man.
Yeah, speaking of St. Borgia as well, the week before Father Toten came into Portageville, Father Toten lost to St. Borgia 24-14. And
wow.
they're in the number 4 in the Class 3, so and I'm done talking about Father Toten.
Yeah, I had enough of Father Toten, huh?
Yes.
All right, now we're going to move on to Class 2, District 1, and this Class 2 is really going to boil down to the top 2 teams, in my opinion. That's Valley Catholic at 6-1, 50.71. Crowsville comes in at number 2 at 6-1. They have 43.10 point-wise. East Prairie at 3 at 5-2, 37.99, and then there's Portageville, 37.19 at number 4, followed by New Measure County Central, team that's really hit the skid this year, man. They're 3-4, and then followed by Scott City at 4-3, so that's interesting there. And then Kelly all the way down there at the bottom at 2-5. Jeremy, Crowsville and Valley Catholic.
Yeah, the way it.
Top dogs, and looks like they might play each other again.
The way it would set up if the playoffs started today, you got Valley with the bye, and then it would be Crothersville against Kelly, which I think Kelly's 2-5. They've had a not so good season, and then let's see, 3 plays 6, so. Who is that?
East Prairie, Scott City. Yeah, East Prairie, Scott City.
Yeah, and that would surprise me if that goes the way of Scott City. Kind of shake things up, but Crothersville would get the if they win first round, they'd get another home game, and then they go on the road. Is the way that the bracket's set up.
Yeah, I mean, here's what's interesting about this class, this district, guys. Kelly is in last place. That is true, but they're playing Class 4 team this week. That's Solden International Studies with Sumner, who is 1-5. Kelly pulls off a win there. Of course, Scott City probably would say they're probably going to win. I could see probably any of the top bottom 5 teams could very well be in that last spot or the last 2 spots. I mean, I think the Portageville New Madrid game at the end of the year is going to be a big one, for possibly a home playoff game. But, right. East Prairie, like I say, Crowsville and Valley, 1 and 2, that's pretty much a lock. There's not really much going to happen there unless Portageville was to pull the upset. But the other 5, I mean, anything could happen. Anything can happen in that bottom 5.
I completely agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, because you get 10 points for a victory, then 10 points for every class you play up. So.
Yeah, and Portageville don't want to end up at 4, and Scott City end up at 5, because then they would flip, because Scott City won the head-to-head. So Lot of stuff left in these 2 remaining games, guys.
Absolutely. It'll be an interesting last 2 weeks. Now we move on to Class 3, District 1. Dexter, of course, 7-0, leads the way there with 47 points, followed by Park Hills Central at 5-2. They have 39 points. And it's kind of close with St. Jean there. St. Jean has 35 points in number 3. They are 4-3. And then Fredericktown at 2-5. Big difference there with 26 points, followed by Potosi, Herculaneum, and then Kennett at the bottom, guys. I just think Dexter's going to win that Class 3 District 1, and I look forward to them to cause a lot of noise in the playoffs.
Yeah, Dexter, I don't think Dexter will have any problem.
Well,
I mean, it's pretty much a sure thing they're going to win that district.
And that's another class that you're talking about. The St. John team. That's who Crothersville finishes their season with. So, if Crothersville keeps up what they're doing, that St. John could drop a spot there too. That's another those 3, 4, 5 teams. They could all switch up there, but I mean, you're going to see Kennett at the bottom. They're going to end up playing the number 2 seed. So
He just had a rough year, man.
It's going to be a fun 2 weeks.
All right. Now we'll talk about the area leaders, and we got a few right here in the Bootheel. Starting off passing wise, Nick Buckeye with St. Vincent. He has 1,633 yards, 21 touchdowns, and 3 INT, leads the way. Sitting at number 3, and this is just through 5 games, as Hayti hasn't turned their stats in. And thanks to our buddies at SEMO Ball for putting this together and giving us something to talk about on our podcast weekly. JC Ford sitting at number 3 with 1,100 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 2 INTs. I'm going to see if I can't get his other 2 games. I'll look at the stats I got on that, put them in there for him. And then we drop down to Dexter, our player of the week, guys. Mr. Jackson Howard from Dexter had a heck of a game. He has 11 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 778 yards. And then number 9 down there is Kelly's quarterback, Skylar Steele. He has 676 yards, 7 touchdowns, 7 picks. And then closing out the top 10 is Scott City quarterback Jackson Gloff. We've all seen him play. He has 7 touchdowns, 3 picks for 654 yards. So interesting top 10 guys there. Offensively wise, we've seen Buckeye, we've seen Ford, and we've seen Jackson Gloss.
Gloss, yeah, I'm surprised he's not a little bit higher. Now again, he didn't have the greatest game against Crothersville. It was a shutout, but that Jackson Gloss, he's an all-around athlete. He plays great defense, and he also chips in and kicking if he needs to. So he's one of the best all-around athletes I've seen this year.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. And the reason he don't throw the ball, he don't have to throw the ball much. He got Rustin Underwood right behind him. So, and speaking of Rustin Underwood, we'll talk about the rushing game. Of course, rushing is led by Crothersville's own Sammy Bryant, 1,167 yards. He's averaging 7.9 a carry. He has 147 carries and 7 touchdowns. Rustin Underwood from Scott City at number 2 there. He has 166 carries for 1,122 yards. He's averaging 6.8 a carry, and he also has 7 touchdowns. And then East Prairie's Tavion Ware comes in at number 3. He has 148 carries, 1,035 yards. He's averaging 7 yards a carry, 6 touchdowns. And then we'll move on to number 5. There's Trez Clark out of Charleston. We talked about Charleston's running game. They actually got a few good running backs there, and Clark leads the way for the Blue Jays with 892 yards. He's averaging 6.8 yards a carry. He has 131 carries and 7 touchdowns. And then we move on down to number 8, Jaquan Bogan out of Portageville. He has 805 yards, 5.9 carries, and 7 touchdowns. And then Logan Horton out of Chaffee has 741 yards and 6 touchdowns at number 6. And then number 10 is Jet Grahams out of Dexter, and this kid is a stud. I'm going to tell you right now. He has 736 yards, 11.5 is his average. He only has 64 carries, guys. 64 carries, 736 yards. Wow, that's just nuts. 11.5 is what he's averaging. 7 touchdowns. So he's got some Ivory winner numbers there. And then number 14, that's that other Charleston running back, Bernard Betts. He has 536 yards. 8.9 is his average. He's got 7 touchdowns on 60 carries. So, any thoughts on the rushing game? And I know Jeremy's got some thoughts on Sammy Bryant. And Chris, you're going to get a heavy dose of Sammy Bryant on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm sure the Portersville defense knows that. And but let's talk about Jet Graham for a minute. With this Dexter Ball Club, right there tells me that team is loaded. Because if you're not leaning heavily on that kid, you know what I mean? Like you would think he would have 150 carries. So that team has got to be loaded for a player like that to only have 60-something carries. Yeah, I mean, Sammy Bryant, what can you say? Our linebackers are going to have their job cut out for them. But we do have some young sophomore linebackers, Brody Warren, and he's going to be in there, and I ain't scared to hit. So, like I say, it's going to be good to watch Sammy Bryant, as I haven't seen him or any of the Crowsville players this year.
Yeah,
I can tell you right now what to look forward to, because it happens each and every single almost every play. If Sammy gets the ball, you're going to see him, unless he's on an end around, you'll see him go right up the middle. You're going to think the play is dead. And then all out of nowhere, you're going to see number 3 scampering down the field. He does that every single game. I don't know how. He's a little guy, but he just does not go down.
Yeah, he's tough as nails, man. And Dexter also has the Alford kid that is good and putting up good numbers as well. Now, receiving-wise, I'm going to kind of skip around here. John Schwartz is number 2 for St. Vincent. He has 547 yards, 6 touchdowns. He's in our coverage area. Max Wheeler out of St. Vincent, 447 yards, 23 is his average. Excuse me. He has 6 touchdowns on the year. And then number 7 is Carruthersville's Jermonte Alexander. He has 442 yards receiving on 30 catches. He's averaging 14.7 a catch with 6 touchdowns. And then let's move around. Germán out of St. Vincent, 262 yards. 14.6 is his average. He's got 3 touchdowns. Lane Holder out of Scott City at number 11. And then Jack Seaball out of St. Vincent at number 12. So, and then there's Jeremy Alexander out of Hayti sitting at 13. And then Isaiah Love at 15. And then we actually have a kid from Malden, Mathis, at number 14. He has 3 touchdowns on the year. Love has 4. Alexander has 3. So that are your top receiving cores in the area. Now, defensive leaders, the first one is Carruthersville's Oscar Dominguez. He has 98 tackles, so just 2 away from 100 tackles through 7 games, guys. That's awesome numbers, Jeremy.
Well, Mark, he put up 18 tackles against Hayti there the other night, leading the team. And, yeah, he's going to hit the century mark. And the crazy thing was he got his first interception of his career at Scott City, and then because Chaz Thomas made an interception, fumbled the ball at the goal line, it was Oscar that scooped it up in the end zone, got his first defensive touchdown of his career. So he's on quite a run, and he leads the team in tackles each and every week.
I tell you what, that's a secret weapon right there, man. Is he delivered the hit that JC Ford got hurt on. Ford's leg got kind of turned around on him there, man, and looked pretty bad, but it was a clean hit for sure. But anyway, number 2 is Carson House out of St. Vincent at 77 tackles. Ryder Kraus, out of Kelly, he's got 76 tackles at number 3. Let's see. Scott City Lane Miller's on here at number 8 with 65. Jamari Alexander. Now, here's an interesting fact I just found out the other day, guys. Jamari Alexander, who was Hayti's leading tackler, has, I guess, up and moved, man. So that's going to hurt Hayti. I know we missed him Friday night in the Crowsville game. He has 64 tackles, man. Hoping he comes back. I don't know what's going on there, but we definitely going to miss him, man, if he stays gone. And Abernathy for St. Vincent comes in at 13. And then Jeremy got Jackson Napier out of Crowsville at number 14 with 58 tackles. Tell us a little bit about Napier. I mean, he been quite the silent but deadly weapon, I guess.
He's just one of those quiet players. I've got to, it seems like he gets more and more tackles each and every week. And he just somehow he does it quietly. But you look down there, you look in the sea of red or white, depending if you're home or away, and Jackson is in on just about every play, whether he's the first one to get there or one cleaning it up. And a stand-up kid, and he just plays football. He lines up every time, and he is somewhere in on every play, and he's a great guy. So, Chris, you'll get to see that number quite a bit.
All right, and then we move down to number 17 is Malachi Hughes for New Madrid County Central. He has 57 tackles, and then Branham out of Charleston sits at number 19. He has 56 tackles. And then Charleston's Canarius Clark has 55. Clark can also run that football for Charleston. And then Ty Atkins out of Chaffee closes the top 25 with 53 tackles. Sacks leaders, Nolan Offer, that's the kid from Dexter I was just talking about. He has 11 sacks on the year, so he's having a good job defensively. And Chris, sitting there at number 3 is that Maddox Morgan, the one I mentioned earlier. He's got 6 sacks on the year, so he might give Crosville a little bit of problem.
Well, I'm sure that they're gonna know, which. Of course, all of our defense is pretty solid, and we'll rush 2 sometimes, and then we'll have 4 or 5 linebackers, and then we may push a couple of the linebackers up, and we'll rush 4. Luke keeps it wide open. He doesn't just rush the same thing, and so. But Maddox Morgan's been a solid player for our defense all year long, and he gets back there on that quarterback. That's for sure.
So, do you think that Brothers was going to have to give him Morgan? That is the Aaron Donald treatment.
Oh yeah. I tell you what, man, he was all in the backfield against Hayti, man. So Hayti couldn't do nothing with him. All right, so now we'll move on to interception leaders, guys. And number 1, a guy who had a few picks the other night, even a pick 6. He would have had 2 pick 6s, but one got called back for a holding. That is Mr. Jamonte Alexander. He has 8, guys. 8 interceptions in one high school football season. So he's got a interception for every game.
Wow.
Jeremy?
Well, I talked to him last night, and it's something that he gets asked all the time because he's up there, as you just mentioned, he's up there in the receiving as well. The thing is that he gets asked, what does he like better? Does he like offense or defense? He prefers making the interceptions. He loves to watch the quarterback, and then you'll see a lot of times, you'll think a wide receiver has him beat. He'll close the gap, and that's where those interceptions are coming from. He's an absolute stud. That's all I can say.
Yeah, on the pick 6, we had Isaiah Love wide open, and then he come across the middle forward, never seen him, and then he just did the rest on his own. Chris, sitting at number 2, is Evan Windsor. He has 5 interceptions on the year.
Yeah, he picked up one. He picked up one not last week, but the week before after we talked about the Russian leaders. And he's just a defensive back that knows how to catch the football, and he knows how to play cornerback as well. So I hope he adds 2 or 3 more to that list after this game Saturday.
Jackson Gloss sits at number 3 for Scott City with 4. Mac Munson at East Prairie's got 4. John Schwartz out of St. Vincent's got 4. Gus Uttenauer out of St. Vincent's got 4. So St. Vincent got some good defensive players as well. And then Ty Wallace out of East Prairie at 3. Wallace is, of course, good basketball player as well for East Prairie. Tyson Ford out of Jackson with 3. Dobbins out of Malden with 3. And then Turnbow out of Dexter with 3. So, guys, you see these leaders, and most of them, you know why these teams are good in the area. Got some great players in our area this year, man. And I guess guys, that's going to about wrap it up for our discussion for the night, man. Chris, you want to add anything? And then Jeremy, you can close us out.
Closing thoughts. The key for Porterville is not only going to be to jump on them early, but we have to win the turnover battle, and we've got to win it big. Because we need to do everything we can to take the momentum away from the Tigers. As it's going to be a rowdy Saturday with Tiger fans just foaming at the mouth because they haven't had a home game in a while, and so. Like I say, man, I'm just excited to get there, and I hope that my dogs pull the upset. That would be awesome to shake this district up. And but Jeremy, I'm looking forward to working the game with you, and man, I think it's going to be a good one. I really do.
100% likewise. You're right. It's going to be an absolutely rowdy crowd. People, again, it's homecoming. So there's going to be people. The stands are going to be packed, and I'm sure there's going to be a sea of blue out there as well. But just the momentum, the emotions of being home for the first time in a month is going to add to it. And I'm just looking forward to a great game with you. And on a side note, tomorrow night, as we talked about the matchups, there's a lot of really good matchups tomorrow night. So for those Crothersville and Porterville fans, pay attention, watch the scoreboards, and watch KFS 12 or whatever you got to do, because there's some really big games tomorrow night, and it's going to be a fun weekend all around in high school football in the area.
Yeah, and you can watch Haytime Indian football at 7:00 tomorrow night. We'll have that game as they make the close to 5-hour drive to Pleasant Hope with Halfway. So 2 schools combining for a football program. We're seeing a lot more of that these days, guys. Schools combining, and but down in our area, we stay true to ourselves, don't we? I was just telling,
right.
I think it was Paul Glass. Me and Paul was having a conversation last Friday in the booth, man, before the game, and talking about schools combined. I said, could you imagine if Haytime, Crothersville, and whoever else combined? And man.
Yeah, I think a lot of that, though, Mark.
Yeah,
a lot of that, though, Mark, is I think a school gets down in enrollment so much, and I know that enrollment's dropped around here as well, but I don't, luckily none of our schools around here has faced that challenge. But yes, I mean, you go to adding Haytime and Crothersville, you better look out. So, wow, that'd be something for sure.
Yeah.
Well, all right, guys, that's going to close us down for this week. Make sure you tune in to the Bootheel Sports Network Friday night for the Haytime game, Saturday afternoon for that Portersville showdown right here on the Bootheel Sports Network. It's Mark Manley, that's Chris Brown, and Jeremy Abrams. All right, guys, we will see you at the field on Friday and Saturday.